You can't take these herbs that are going to kill the parasites. That's essentially what these herbs are doing, or the drugs that are going to kill the parasites, let's say, and at the same time give the parasites the food that they love. Oh, why would we leave? Oh, it's so delicious in here with all these yummy carbs that you're feeding me, right? That's what those little parasites are probably saying. So you have to make that environment inhospitable for them, and at the same time put something in there that they don't like, and then they're like, oh, this isn't delicious and yummy anymore, but in addition to that, it's very foul, this environment, we don't want to be here, and out the parasites go, or they don't stop breeding and making more. That's essentially what you're doing. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. It's Marie Hopkinson here. I'm answering a subscriber's question today about black walnut, neem, and wormwood and parasite cleansers. And I'm going to answer this question now. They put this on one of my damp heat videos. So I'm going to read the question out in a minute. But if you're new to the channel, welcome to the podcast. If you're listening on audio, welcome. And if you're listening on audio, make sure you hit up the subscribe and leave us a review on YouTube or Google or Apple, wherever you're listening to from. It makes a really big difference if you leave a comment or a review on the podcast. Places where you can review, that'd be awesome. So let me get to the question. It says, this is from Justice for All. They say, great podcast. I'm very interested in damp heat. I think parasites induce the body to produce it when we eat anything with sugar, in brackets, glucose, fructose, lactose, galactose, polysaccharides, maltose, and so on. They're very informed, which is great. I am positive that when we take antibiotics, parasites take over territory in the digestive tract. So the next time sugars are consumed, the damp heat is doubled or more. Until these parasites, in brackets candida or worms, are removed, I don't believe the diet will change much. Like, as in changing your diet won't really change too much. What is your take on parasites and herbs like wormwood, neem, black walnut, and so on? So this is a great question, and it's a really good topic. And the reason why I didn't answer it in a comment is because it needed a video, a proper answer. So there's a few good points raised in this. And when I first read your question, I was thinking that you were asking, like, if you use these herbs or treatments to get rid of parasites and you don't change your diet, nothing much will change. And that is definitely true. It's very hard to get rid of parasites in Chinese medicine with just herbs. So Western medicine is much better at getting rid of worms and parasites. We have really much better treatments to kind of do that, much more effective treatments. So if someone knows that they have worms, like they've got a diagnosis of that, or they have to go to Western medicine to get that diagnosis, then, or you're pretty sure that, like, you've seen worms, with kids, the worms can come out of their poo and things like that, then your quickest option would be with Western medicine. Right now, Chinese medicine does have a history of treating it, but it's not really one of its best aspects. So if a person's infested with worms, it's probably a horrible thing to kind of talk about, but I wonder whether it's because adults, possibly even with children, it's hard to change their diet. So if you have a diet which is dampening, it's an environment that encourages those worms. And you're very right with your comment about, like, when you eat things with sugar and all the derivatives, the types of sugar that you've listed there, then it creates an environment of dampness, right? So if you were to do a parasite cleanse with some of these things, these Chinese medicine herbs or Western medicine herbs, so neem and black walnut aren't Chinese medicine herbs, they're just Western herbs. But wormwood is a Chinese herb, so it's Qinghao in Chinese medicine. And I'll talk about what the properties of these things are in a minute. But if you were to do a cleanse with using those things, you have to address your diet. You can't just take those herbs on, especially if someone's having a diet that's dampening. So if they have carbohydrates, if they have sugars, they have to go off all those things to kind of create an environment that's inhospitable to the worms, to the parasites. So it comes back to this idea of Chinese medicine understanding our homeostasis, which is one of the things I love about it as so much. And I'm going to talk about this in a classical Chinese medicine perspective, because that really makes a lot of sense. Well, to me, it makes a lot of sense to me. Thinking about what the environment that you've got inside your body, that has to be like inhospitable to those parasites, and then they'll leave your body, or they won't take up camp in your body. They won't start that process there. So either your immune system has to be low, or you're consuming a diet that's really dampening, let's say, and then you ingest the parasite somehow, so they might be in the food that you've had. Now, if you had tons of yang, think about that like a little blaster. It's going to go blast the parasites away, right? Kill them. But if your environment in your body is welcoming to those parasites, they're like, oh, why would we leave? It's so comfortable here in your intestines and in your body. I'll just stay here and I'll start hatching eggs everywhere and those kinds of things, right? But you also have these like things that aren't necessarily worms, right? Like, so candida, these fungal infections, or these things that kind of like cohabit our body, let's say, in a relationship where, like, at any time for some people it could just come out of balance, but then it's that, so they're like, oh, I feel like I'm getting this candida coming on, and then it goes away, and then it comes back, and they can really maybe notice it with their diet. But to clear it out completely, it may take a very strict approach to the diet for quite some time, like getting off of sugar completely. Now, let's talk about these herbs. So I'm pretty sure that neem and wormwood and black walnut are all going to act in the same kind of way to treat this parasite problem, right? We don't know. I don't know exactly, because there's no documentation for those things in Chinese medicine, except for wormwood. So wormwood's called Qinghao, and it's a clearing heat herb. Now, I'm pretty sure that this neem and black walnut will be having a similar effect. They're not going to have a warming effect. They're going to have much more of a cooling effect. So this is a big difference in Western, so this is a big difference in classical Chinese herbal medicine to TCM. So in traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, there's a lot more of these attacking kind of herbs used, or this heat clearing method is used a lot more, which is in some way not compatible to this idea of, like, let's just maintain homeostasis. So in classical Chinese medicine, we tend to think, okay, the reason why you'd have parasites is because you don't have enough yang to transform them, so we just need to increase your body's yang, right? Or make sure you're not losing yang, or maybe give you a purging treatment, possibly. But it wouldn't be the long-term treatment. Certainly you never take purging treatments for like months and months on end, right? Because if you purge your body, you're really going to know about it. Like, you're going to have diarrhea, you're going to vomit, something like that. So if you've ingested a poison and you know there's a parasite in that poison or something, yeah, okay, you vomit it out, or you excrete it out of your body. Now, we're talking about ancient Chinese medicine here. I'm sure if people ingested poison these days, poisonous foods, or, off foods or things like that, they would go down to Western medicine and do something about it that way. But in the old days, they used a lot of purgative kind of formulas for the things where we wouldn't necessarily use them. Now you'd use Western medicine for that. Anyway, the point is, the purgative formulas are damaging to your body because they're purging not just the thing out that you want to purge out, but they purge out everything. Like, they deplete you, they deplete your fluids. So when you vomit, you don't just vomit toxins, you vomit everything out. Same as if you have diarrhea, you poop out all of your fluids if someone was to have extreme diarrhea. So these cooling and clearing heat herbs, they shouldn't be used for long periods of time. It shouldn't be something that people live on, right? To think, oh, I need to, live on this. Now, it's interesting to think about these sorts of things with certain drugs that have come to light now, right? So I know there's a certain drug, maybe I won't mention it because this is just about Chinese medicine, but that drug came from the herb that we're talking about here, right? As in, it's part of that derivative of that concept. So this herb, actually, Qinghao, was part of the Wu Tol's. That's a lady that won the Nobel Prize a while back for the anti-malarial drugs that were produced from this, like a malaria treatment. So it has known anti-malarial effects, and it has known antibiotic effects, and so anything that has those kinds of effects can be cooling, right? So I'm reading this out from the Formulas and Strategies textbook. This is a very reputable textbook, and says it's got known pharmacological effects, antibiotic effects, and anti-malarial effects. So part of this, your question that you've asked is if someone does take antibiotics, parasites take over. So what's the difference between this herb here that's got antibiotic effects as well? Not a huge difference, right? There is a difference because one's a herb and one's a drug, but it's the same idea. They're both cooling, right? So they're cooling your body, and in that cooling process, it's killing some of your yang. So you can't live on these herbs. You can't keep taking them over a period of time. So I think the idea would be to say, right, I have a parasitic infection. I'm going to use these herbs alongside of a very strict diet protocol where you don't have any sugar, because you can't take these herbs that are going to kill the parasites. That's essentially what these herbs are doing, or the drugs that are going to kill the parasites, let's say, and at the same time give the parasites the food that they love. Oh, why would we leave? Oh, it's so delicious in here with all these yummy carbs that you're feeding me, right? That's what those little parasites are probably saying. So you have to make that environment inhospitable for them, and at the same time put something in there that they don't like, and then they're like, oh, this isn't delicious and yummy anymore, but in addition to that, it's very foul, this environment, we don't want to be here, and out the parasites go, or they don't stop breeding and making more. That's essentially what you're doing. So you're either doing that thing or you're not doing that thing, but you can't sort of be half doing a parasite cleanse, let's say. You're either doing it or you're not doing it. So that would be my answer. Hopefully that answers your question. So you have to be very careful. Wormwood isn't a herb that I'd keep on taking over long periods of time at all, because it's cooling, and that's not the nature of Chinese medicine. You should never take cooling herbs for any, well, in classical Chinese medicine, we never use them. I shouldn't say never, but we very rarely use them. We would more use things like ginger, let's say, as a herb to warm your stomach, and even hotter ginger like ganjiang or paojiang, which is like dried ginger or processed dried ginger, and that kind of blasts the intestines in terms of increases the yang and makes that environment much more functional, how it's supposed to be. And then it's your body that kind of rids the parasites, rather than saying, oh, we need to douse those parasites with this herb that they don't like. At the same time, your body that's not the natural environment of your body either, those herbs. Whereas ginger is much more the natural environment of your stomach and your intestines, because the ginger is the main herb for your stomach, right? It's the main herb, relaxes your stomach, it kind of helps your stomach energy. So I hope this video has been somewhat explanatory and not too confusing. I would love to hear your comments in the comments below. I'm doing more live streams on the channel as well. If people are watching this and they want to ask a question, I may answer it on a stream. And also, I'm doing a course next year, so you can jump onto the link below and check out the course. I'd love to teach you more and more about Chinese medicine. If that's something you're interested in, then I'd love to talk about that with you in my course. And you can find out more about what that is in the link below. So we're going to talk about Chinese diet therapy. We're going to talk about herbs that you might need to have at home for colds and flus, and treatments that you can use on yourself, acupressure, understanding the body from the 5 elements, the Zhang Fu. It's a 1-year course. It's a really in-depth training to help people that are just interested in being more healthy and learning more about themselves and how to prevent illness. And this knowledge is stuff that will never go away. So as in, it's evergreen knowledge. It's been around since the Han Dynasty. So thank you for your interest so much for your question. Justice for All. What a great YouTube name. And thank you for the viewers for your interest in Chinese medicine. And I look forward to seeing you again on another video soon.